welcome. I see we have more people joining by this second, but I think we are going to get started because we've got a lot of great content today for you all. So thank you so much for joining and welcome to this week's WayUp Summer Series session. Today we have John Pearson, who I am so excited for you all to meet and learn a lot about. What I will tell you is this should be an very different session than some of the ones prior. In the past, you've heard from people talking more about lessons they've learned in their career, about how they got to where they are. And while John has had an incredible career, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a second, this session is actually going to be more about you all. So today John's going to be talking about advice that he has on behalf of all campus recruiters out there for people who are early in their career, whether you're in college, whether you've graduated in the last 5 years, people who are early in their career and are looking for advice on how to get that dream job. The fact is that there's a lot of things that go on in recruitment behind the scenes that most people don't actually know about or realize is going on. And John's going to debunk a lot of those misconceptions and really tell you the truth about a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. So please join me in welcoming John. John, just a little bit of background on John. John has done campus recruiting at several different companies, from Target to UBS, and now, of course, Unilever, where he runs all campus recruitment. He's fantastic. He's constantly looked at as an expert, truly an expert in this space. And so I can't wait for you all to really ask any questions you have. So with that, John, you can go ahead and put your video on. There we are. Hi, John. How are you?
Hey, Liz. Thank you so much for having me as the guest speaker as part of the WayUp Summer Series event.
No, thank you for doing this. This is awesome. When we were thinking about how we could have someone on who could kind of tell everyone what really goes on behind the scenes, there was only one person who I immediately said, oh, I know this guy's going to be great. Because John, for those who don't know, if you follow John on LinkedIn, or on Instagram, and we can kind of plug those handles at the end of this, you actually do some sessions with people all the time about like career advice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I created a channel on Instagram. It's called University Relations Podcast. You can type it in the search bar. What I'm trying to do, and again, that advice on that platform is mine specifically, not for the companies that I've worked for in the past. But what I'm trying to do is spark an engagement with an audience that never has to go through some of these struggles and the opportunities that I went through when I was looking for a job early on.
Exactly. Awesome. So today, I know you're going to be giving everyone a sneak peek into what happens behind the scenes on, campus recruiting and recruiting in general, whether it's college or you're a recent graduate. We're going to do that. But why don't we start with just tell everyone a little bit more about your career and your role today, just so everyone has that context before we dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated Clemson 2015 with an organizational psychology degree with an emphasis in human resource management. Once I graduated from college, I took a position with Target where I was the executive team leader for guest experience and logistics. While being in that role, I have a very extroverted personality. I'm very outgoing. I love to work with others. I'm the oldest of 6, and I became more involved in the campus recruitment program there at Target. While I was there in Target, I was like, hey, I'm finding this passion. I'm excited. I really like to work well with others. I like to see that data. I like to see the analytics. I know that I'm helping someone out significantly. And after that, I took an opportunity with UBS, where I was the associate director of campus recruitment. I was personally responsible for the recruitment of over 10 businesses. What an amazing company. What an amazing experience. Got to learn all parts of the bank. And then after that, I took a position with Unilever, been there ever since, been over almost 2 years and 2 months. And I am personally responsible for the entire recruitment process. So literally your full cycle of a process, anything from your HR to your IT to your finance, all the way to your supply chain, your R&D, your food science programs. I am personally responsible for all the recruitment of our internship program, our co-op program, as well as our UFLP program. And I also help with the employer branding as well. So that's just a little bit about what I currently do with Unilever. Amazing. As well as my past.
So what I love about your past then is like you really can speak to recruiting in finance world, business world, CPG, marketing, supply chain, retail, and all of that. So everyone, your questions, no matter what industry you're asking about, maybe not like doctors, But outside of that, you are free to ask. And just a quick reminder, because I'm seeing the Q&A coming in, and keep it coming, because I'm going to switch over to you all in 20 minutes or so. Please make sure you just list if you're willing to go on video or not. Just a quick reminder to do that. Okay, so when you think back to candidates who really stand out, I'm sure if I said to you, like, John, tell me a few stories of candidates who really stood out, who've been some of the most impressive candidates you've ever met. What did they do so well that really left a lasting impression for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me first off say there is this stigma out there that campus recruiters, all of us make the final decision on if a candidate is promoted or we hire them. And again, I'm going to speak on this on my personal own experience and working with my network. The candidates that I see make it from the beginning to the end, and also reaching out with my network, is the candidates that demonstrate a sense of urgency. And what I mean by a sense of urgency, are they networking with others? Are they meeting with the program managers? Are they meeting with the additional stakeholders? Are they meeting with people outside of the business? Because again, you're there only, you got to remember this, as an intern, you're probably there only 8 to 10 weeks. So who are you getting in front of? The second thing is, are you actually able to take feedback and run with it? Now, when you're going to these big time companies, a lot of candidates that are in these internship programs are Ivy League schools, HBCUs, HSIs, top 150, top 200 universities. But I think what stands out and what sticks out to a candidate, to the hiring manager, to the functional leads, is the candidates that could take that feedback and run with it. So you might not be perfect, you might have flaws, you might have opportunities in the beginning, but are you able to demonstrate that sense of urgency that shows, hey, my program manager gave me this feedback, what am I going to do about it? Do you show that sense of urgency that you're able to fix it on the move? Are you able to address it? Are you able to fix it as soon as possible? And then being accountable for your own actions. We understand that you are not going to be perfect from day one. But we would like to see, and when I say we, is like the managers, the program managers, the leads, the networks that I speak with, what they all say is like, hey, do they take accountability for their wins? And do they take accountabilities for their opportunities? Because what happens at the end of the day is I'm the first person to tell you, hey, I did this. But what I also do recognize as a trait of success is when I make a mistake, I'm the first person to jump in front of the room and say, hey, I made that mistake. I should have asked questions. And then again, as an intern, guys, please know that you are there for 10 weeks. You're not going to be subject matter experts on every single thing. So please go ahead, ask questions. Those I would say are the 4 traits that make or break interns that I've seen in the past through my experience and then working with networks.
Awesome. If we can maybe do anecdotes, I'd love to hear, like, and I can start, any anecdotes of candidates who've really stood out for you, just to like bring some of what you're saying to life. So for example, to your point about reaching out and going out of your way, I remember the candidates that have stood out and actually ended up getting hired at WayUp for our own company have been candidates who really went out of their way to do research and then showed that they did their research. So I remember one guy, Ali Khan, when he reached out and cold emailed me, he said, I'd love to buy you a grande skinny vanilla latte in a venti cup with 2 Splenda. And I was like, oh my gosh, how does this guy know my drink order? But also like, so while that's a little creepy, like, wow, he really did his research. And if he spent that much time doing his research, then, you know, that probably means he's worthwhile. And there's other stories as well. And for everyone who's wondering, he did not just stalk me at Starbucks. He had heard me say that my drink order was that in some fun fact podcast. So John, any like good examples that you could share without sharing the name of the candidate for privacy purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a level of passion that you see from consistency and the level of interns that come across through every single business, through every single networking opportunity. It was funny as I was sitting in on one of the interviews and one of the candidates actually came in and recited a line for line for what I was speaking about in one of my podcasts. I thought that was extremely interesting. From a passion level standpoint, I actually saw someone make their entire resume on TikTok, which definitely caught my eye. I've spoken to peers, and actually someone in my network said that their candidate made a music video for one of their interviews. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was kind of cool. I'm like, hey, like someone actually put themselves out there. Someone was not afraid to fail. And that was absolutely amazing. And you can only, and what you guys will go back on and look on is, I have these thoughts all the time. It's like, what if I did this? What if I did that? And you do not want to have those thoughts. So like, if you're really believing in something and you're really passionate about it, get out there, speak to it, be in front of it. And that's definitely something that you could do to stick out. I'll give you another example. While creating a podcast and working with the team, one of the candidates actually reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm not expecting anything in return. I think the content that you have, that you produce on your Instagram channel is fantastic. Let me see if I would love to film you for it. Let me do the edits. Let me do the additions. No charge, nothing. But I believe in you that much that we want to make it work. And those are a couple of examples of candidates that stuck out. Again, we did not give that candidate a specific offer, but those are ways that you could reach out and really, truly make a difference.
Amazing. And just out of curiosity, how should a candidate balance like being creative with sometimes companies, like I would imagine that a lot of banks out there, if someone submitted their resume via TikTok, would say, no, thank you, not for us. You clearly don't get our brand. Any tips on how a candidate who's kind of taking those risks should also balance reality as well?
No, that's completely fair call out, Liz. I think you have to understand the culture of the company. It's very easy to look up the culture of a company. Say, for instance, you are applying to a bank or you're applying to a CPG and find out what they value. Now, you being creative and then you being maybe obnoxious or doing something different, I could see where that there is a gap. But what I tell people this all the time, and a little pointer for everyone that's on here, and again, this is my personal advice, is what we're doing as candidates, we're always reaching out to the recruiter via LinkedIn. And we're sending a message to the recruiter and we're telling them, hey, I'm interested in this internship. I want to apply. And what I tell people this is that it is a numbers game. If you look at my LinkedIn right now, I'm still catching up on messages from January and February, and I'm still trying to answer everyone's questions. But look at it as if you message someone that's actually an intern in the role currently, or as a manager, like the title says, Intern Lead. Think about messaging them and reaching out to them and saying, hey, extending an olive branch, being like, hey, I'm very interested in the role. Think of something that would stick out. Like you said, Liz, like you got a LinkedIn message being like, hey, let me buy you coffee sometime. Think of something like that. Find that bridge, find that gap, because what you will see is that it is a numbers game. It is an area of opportunity. And a lot of people don't see it that way. They say, okay, I need to get to the direct source right now, and there's nothing that I could do to hold back. So I understand that sense of urgency, but think of it like this. Make sure that you're reaching out to the person that's in specifically that role. And I think that you guys will have a lot more, I think, medium and like that balance of finding the right person to reach out to while being creative. Yeah.
Awesome. And just to everyone who's submitting these amazing questions, we will get to you soon. I'll do about 5 to 10 more minutes of questions, and then we're going to switch over to you. But John, I'm curious, common mistake, like what's the number one most common mistake you see students make when they're applying for a role?
I would say there's two. The biggest one is not knowing why you want to work for the company. Now think of it like this. You want to work for a ginormous company, or you want to work for an investment banker, you want to work for a profound CPG. 99% of the answers that you get as to why you want to work there are the exact same. You are not sticking out in any bit of the process. You are giving a LinkedIn summary. You are giving a Google one-line summary of why you want to work there. But think of it like this. If you're answering that question the same way that 99% of the people are answering that question, you are not sticking out. The second thing that I like to focus on, and I stress this, and again, this is my personal opinion. This is not the opinion of companies that I've worked for, and these are my learning experiences, is I used to focus so much on a cover letter. I used to spend days, months on typing a cover letter that was 1.5 pages, 2 pages long, and it would take me forever. Well, in that meantime, I could have applied to 14, 15 different positions that I was interested in and never got calls back. So that, again, is my personal opinion. That is not the opinion of companies that I've worked for, but those are the two biggest things that I see candidates struggle with when applying for roles.
Yeah, such a good point. And just as a side note to everyone watching, because I can certainly speak on behalf of many other companies as well, I don't know any of our clients who at least tell me that they pay attention to cover letters. So I totally agree that cover letters are something I usually really agree with a lot of advice from career service offices, but that's the one piece of advice that I frequently say. I know career services tells you to spend 10 hours on that one, but very often most companies don't read it. And just a side note, I'll throw a third one in there, which is a lot of companies will only print out your first page of your resume. So don't make a multi-page resume. People with 40 years of career experience still manage to get it on one page. So if you're in college or recent grad, I can just tell you there's a lot of companies where their ATS cuts it off, their system cuts it off after one page. So keep it at one page unless for some reason you need to, and be prepared to have that second page or third page cut off. So what about, talk to me about this resume. So on the piece of the resume, any like key things to ensure when you're sending out a resume outside of just trying to keep it on one page, like maybe a mission statement at the top, interests at the bottom, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a matter of opinion. I don't think that there's like a factual base, like, hey, this is the perfect scenario for your resume to look. What I do recommend is that, and speaking with my peers and speaking with different people in my network, I think that there is an unconscious bias that is in the program when your GPA is not on your resume. I think that what I'm seeing and what I'm speaking to a lot of my network about is that hiring managers are assuming candidates are hiding something. So if your resume is not on there, just please make sure, even if it's not your major or your cumulative GPA, at least have your major GPA on there that's bold. When it comes to a summary, I recommend one or two sentences, no more than three. A quick little pointer to tell everyone that's on this is that when you, for instance, if you apply to a different role outside of the square mile radius you're in. So for instance, say you're in Connecticut and you're applying to a role in Texas. Make sure in your summary, it says in there that you're willing to relocate to the greater Texas, Austin area. The reason why I say that is because speaking with peers, speaking with other people in my network, there isn't anything more frustrating than calling a candidate and they're like, hey, they're perfect, they're the great fit. And then they're like, well, I was looking for a position in Connecticut. That location itself is a little bit of a hack. Someone told me that, and it's a key word, and it completely makes sense. So please, if you are applying to roles that are outside of your 150-mile radius, make sure in your summary it's very clear that your location, that you're willing to relocate to that area.
What a great point, because you're right. A lot of recruiters will, if they'll just assume that you're not willing to relocate and they won't even let you go forward. Oh my gosh, everyone watching, please, please, please do that. That is so smart. I'll tell you, just a side note, I agree. I think you're totally right that there's not one size fits all, but I'll share just a quick anecdote with everyone for 60 seconds. One of my friends, Aaron, was sharing that his favorite part of his resume is the interest section at the bottom. And at the bottom on his resume, it says that he is a part owner of the Green Bay Packers. Now, the fact is that anyone can buy shares in the Green Bay Packers. You can buy shares for like $50 or, whatever, and not thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. And you don't get anything out of it. The Packers just do it for fan involvement. So he puts that on his resume. It stands out. People always ask him about it. And he shared that he thinks he got his last job because he put that on his resume under his interests, and it helped him stand out. So I'm a big fan of the interest section if you can make it, somewhat unique and not just generic. My interests are food, cooking, and hiking. Like that's a lot of people. So.
Yeah, and I tell people that it doesn't hurt when you put like on your skills at Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Excel, every internship position, early entry career levels, the level of talent that is coming in with their proficiency around Microsoft Office is becoming more and more relevant. So if you are proficient in those skills, please make sure to put that on your resume. And again, I tell people this all the time. What is on your resume, you better believe a recruiter or a hiring manager is going to walk you through it. So do not fabricate it. Be completely honest, because whatever's on that piece of paper is fair game for any questions.
Awesome. Okay, my last two questions for you, and then I'm going to switch it over to everyone else. Video recorded interviews.
Okay.
Ooh. We have some candidates, some members of WayUp, we have millions and millions of people on WayUp, but we get a lot of feedback from candidates that they just dread going on a recorded video because they're scared, they're intimidated, they don't know how their first impression will be. And I get it, it can be really scary. I know Unilever uses HireVue, and maybe you've worked at other companies that use HireVue. So in John Pearson's experience and opinion, just any advice you have for students who have to go through that experience when applying for a job and record that video of how to become cool, collected, and show their best self?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you. This will be my complete opinion. And again, this is me working with my network, connecting with other campus recruiters. What I tell people during these hire reviews is that it is an interview and not a beauty pageant. And what I mean by that is you'd be so caught up by surprise is that when you are interviewing on this camera, how many people are adjusting their tie, they're combing their hair, they're brushing their shoulders off. If you were on an in-site interview, would you be doing that? So think of it like you're approaching the interview as if you were on site. The second thing is make sure that you're surrounding in an area that is clean, presentable, and quiet. Why I say that is because I've seen videos in the past. I've worked with other campus recruiters who have seen videos in the past. I've worked with recruiters, and sometimes they can't even hear the person speaking because there's loud background noise. There's inappropriate posters in the background. There has been an area that's not presentable. Those are things to just focus on, and those are things that you can control. When you are addressing your interview questions on HireVue, use the STAR method. So be able to give a situation, be able to give your recommendation. What was the result from your recommendation? So think of it like that. If you're able to answer all of those questions in that specific method, you will do phenomenal. And just please know, show that passion, show that sense of urgency, show that you truly care. Because think about it like this. If an interviewer is watching your video and you show no passion, you show no sense of urgency, you show that you're not really that interested in the company, and it can be that you're so interested in the company, but you don't show that, what makes them think that if you were to come on site 6 months later from when they hired you, that you're going to still have any bit of passion, any bit of energy, any sense of urgency? So please show your true self. And I understand that there's a lot of people that are introverted, extroverted. Just make sure that it is very clear that this is where you want to work.
Awesome. And I just put a PDF for everyone who's interested in the STAR method, learning more about that. That's a result of what it is. So feel free to check that out. Awesome advice. I totally agree. Last question, and then we're going to hand it over to the amazing people who are asking questions. And we'll start off with Nikhila, who I'll go to in a minute. But any common misconceptions about the recruitment process that you see entry-level candidates have that you just want to dispel right now?
So you're asking like if there's any misconceptions about campus recruitment that a lot of people, okay. I would definitely reiterate the fact that us as campus recruiters, our job is to get you to the door, and we certainly aren't the ones that make the ultimate hiring decisions. That is definitely something that I would like to reiterate. I want to stress the fact that us as campus recruiters, we're going to do everything we can to support you to get to the door. We want to get you in front of the right people. We want to make sure that you have an organized, collective, great experience with the company. But I just want to reiterate the fact is if I could hire every single candidate that I brought on site, believe me, I would. I would love to make a difference in someone's life and ultimately change their career path. But I just want people to understand, and I see this on LinkedIn all the time, is like the recruiter didn't get back to me, or the recruiter didn't make the decision, or I haven't heard timely enough in regards to specific feedback. What I want you to understand is that us as the campus recruiters, we're waiting for the hiring manager, or we're waiting for the business to come back to us with like an ultimatum or like a decision. And we are not the ones that ultimately make that decision. So that is just something that I want everyone to just be clear about. Any ultimate decision is not really made up to the campus recruiter. It's more so the hiring manager and the team.
Awesome. Great advice. All right. So we're going to hand it over to the audience who are asking way better questions than I ever could. So Nikhila, feel free to come on stage and turn your video and audio on. To introduce Nikhila, Nikhila is a master's student in the University of South Florida, Tampa. So welcome, Nikhila, and feel free to turn your video and audio on and ask your question.
First of all, thank you so much for organizing this session. Thank you, team WayUp. And John, personally, I have been following you from 2019 before I even came to this country to start my master's. So thank you so much for helping me in that journey.
Yeah.
My question since then till now is, as a master's student who's actively looking for internship, especially on LinkedIn, how do you what is the first thing you have to do when you approach a campus recruiter without coming off too strong or straight to the point?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thank you so much for following the account. It's an absolute pleasure to get to meet you. And let me do my best right here to try to answer your question. So if I have this correct, you're asking, what is your best strategy or what do you recommend when looking for an internship as a master student? Is that correct? Or how to navigate that on LinkedIn? Is that about correct?
Yes, without coming across too strong,
Yeah.
when you try to talk to a campus recruiter, what is the first thing you'd want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I give this advice, and again, this is my own personal advice through my experience. But what I do is I'll tell people is when you set the first thing when you add someone on LinkedIn, make sure that you put the personal message so that once they accept your request, that message automatically translates into their LinkedIn inbox. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you are approaching a campus recruiter or any recruiter in a way that shows a mutual benefit to both parties in the relationship. So think about it like this. How many messages can I go through on my LinkedIn account and see, hey, I need an internship, or I need a position, or I really could use an internship, like I applied to this role. I personally can't speak on behalf of them. I don't know who a lot of people are, but what I do see and how I do respond and what my peers have responded are like, hey, I saw this position. I'm extremely interested. Here is my background, and if you have any other questions, let me know. What you need to realize is that you aren't always going to get a response. And I don't want you to take that ever personally, because during my time when I was looking for a position, I was messaging every single recruiter in the world, and I maybe got one or two responses. My strategy completely is if you find a business or a role that you're interested in, find someone that's in that program and message them. Because what'll happen is like my inbox is flooded with messages and I'm still trying to keep up. But say someone that's in that specific business, they may have 5 or 6 messages. But if you show them, what they'll do in return is they'll go, hey, I spoke to this phenomenal candidate on LinkedIn. She is a great fit. I think we should be reaching out to her regarding an internship. And then that's how your resume comes to my attention. Because at the end of the day, we're reviewing for campus recruiting, and this is all of my experiences, is thousands and thousands of candidates. But if you have a line manager or a program manager or someone in the team get that resume to me directly, that's a completely different game changer. That is a completely different strategy. So think of it like this. If 99% of people are messaging the recruiter, message someone that's on that team, and you'll be more likely to have your resume in front of the recruiter before someone is that's messaging a campus recruiter.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikhila. Thank you.
It makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Great. Fantastic. All right. Next up, we are going to bring up onto the stage Arielle Abramova. Arielle, you are welcome to come on stage, and then you can turn your video and audio on. Welcome, Arielle. Or Arielle. I'm sorry Arielle, not Arielle. I apologize. Hi.
Yes, hello. Hi.
Hi.
Hello, John. Nice to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. So I'm a psychology student at Brooklyn College, and I'm actually interested in HR and recruitment. So I was wondering, how did you get started in recruitment? What advice do you have for students interested in this field? And then also what helped you to kind of kickstart your early career? From taking a look at your LinkedIn, I see you have some interesting internship experience and previous work experience. So how were you able to kickstart that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been actually watching some of the WayUp summer series, and what I was seeing is like a question that commonly comes up is like, hey, if you're looking to switch careers or if you have one college major, how do you kind of project your career path? And I think ultimately, Arielle, you have to find something that you're extremely passionate about. For me, at first, I was all about data and numbers, telling my own story, being able to kind of paint my own picture for my career path. And While I was at Clemson, I had numerous internships, but I couldn't find what I was passionate about, and I couldn't find what I really liked. So I got the opportunity to go with Target, and I have a very extroverted personality. I like talking to others. I could speak for days on certain things. And I remember us going on campus, and that moment just clicked for me. It was like, hey, I really like this. I really love being around others. I love being able to provide an opportunity for someone that necessarily did not have it or didn't understand what their career path was going to be. Now, with psychology, you could go in a million different directions. I thought I was going to be a clinical therapist at one point. I thought I was going to be a social worker. I thought I was going to be a million different things. But what I really found a path in was being on campus. I found that energy. I went to Clemson, there's 60,000 students, and being able to have that interaction, being able to evolve my career that way was extremely important to me. So and I want to make sure I'm answering all of your question, Arielle. You had a kind of like a 3-point question. What else can I dig into for you, just so I could clarify?
I guess just more, yeah, you answered my question, but just more about also how were you able to, I guess, get those opportunities? How were you able to explore those different paths as a student?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my biggest advice, and I will give this to my kids, I will give this to everyone, is obviously make sure that you are getting that internship, that co-op experience. But for me, my journey was a little bit different. So I went with Target, then I went with UBS, then I had a little bit of a gap where I was still searching for a career. And Arielle, I kid you not, I was applying to thousands of positions. I was applying every single day. And when I first interviewed at Unilever, it was that moment where I just knew. I knew exactly this is where I wanted to be. I knew that I was put in the right place for a reason. And again, I was interviewing with Fortune 500 companies, and I was making it all the way to that final interview, and I was failing. Because what ended up happening was, Arielle, is at the moment, I couldn't take feedback. I couldn't adjust. I was doing the same thing over and over and over again. Will Smith says insanity, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. Arielle, I wasn't changing my resume. I wasn't updating my answers. I wasn't giving myself critical and honest feedback. So Arielle, if you're going through the process right now, you have to note this. You are going to, and maybe you're not, maybe you're the 1% of the 9, like, you are going to fail at one point or another. It's how you pick yourself up, how you adjust. When I was leaving Target, going to UBS, I interviewed maybe at 30, 40 companies, and I failed over and over and over again. Then when I went from UBS to Unilever, I failed over and over again. But you pick yourself up and you adjust. And Arielle, one quick thing would help me out, because you're a psychology major, I was a psychology major getting into that business. You have to adjust your resume. You have to take your key skills and look at a job description and kind of mirror that. Obviously, don't fabricate it, don't lie to it. But my pointer to you, Arielle, is if you're ever looking to get into the business side of it, read a job description about 3 or 4 times. And when you read it about 3 or 4 times, you'll know exactly what that position is looking for in those keywords. And you'll see it. It'll be very clear to you. For you, you might have to adjust your resume would be my number one advice.
Thank you so much. It's very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, Arielle. And again, I'm so happy to connect with you.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to ask 2 questions on the attendees' behalf, and then we are going to call onto the stage another speaker. So let's go to, where is it? Sorry. Okay, Kate Wang. Kate asked, "Hi, John. I don't have a summary section in my resume. Should I put willing to relocate in my location line? Thank you."
And again, so thank you so much for the question, Kate. Again, it is a personal preference on how your resume is going to look, what works best for you. Again, this is my opinion. I don't want to suggest something that like you might not 100% agree with. This is just a different way to look at it. Now, in regards to the location, if you do receive that phone call, I would make it very clear from the beginning that you are willing to relocate. If your position, again, is more than 150 miles away, there is nothing wrong with you putting under location or putting at the top of your resume, willing to relocate to, for instance, Los Angeles or looking to relocate to the greater Texas, Austin area. There is
Okay.
nothing wrong with that. So again, it is all about preference, but if you do not put it on your resume, I would make it as clear as day that you are willing to relocate from that first phone call.
Awesome. And then before we bring Claudia on stage, one more question for you. I'll ask on the candidate's behalf based on their request. Rachel Williams, who's a University of Mississippi School of Law legal intern at Spectrum. Wow, congratulations. Wants to know, I am having a hard time shortening my resume. Is it a good idea to remove my undergraduate GPA, honors, and experience in order to highlight my extensive legal experience?
Okay, so if I have this correct, I would probably ask is how
grad
much
students, basically,
Yeah.
how much emphasis should they do on their undergrad curriculum and experience versus more of their actual work experience for grad students?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I look at a resume, and I'm assuming you're in law school, you have if she's on there, do you have work experience, or is it just
It sounds like she says she has extensive legal experience. Yeah.
Okay, so what I would ask is obviously do not eliminate your legal experience. Please keep that on there. When it comes to your GPA, I would recommend still keeping it on there, just because like you don't want that to be an unconscious bias when a recruiter or your network reads that and they're like, hey, I'm assuming she might be hiding something. But again, what you can do is if you need that space and you're like, hey, I need to remove the GPA, and you know that your GPA is at that high point where the business is requesting it, you can also ask to send them transcripts. So what'll happen, and I see this more common, is that when businesses are requesting for GPAs to be at a certain standpoint, when they're getting that internship, you can also include your transcripts. That is no problem. But what I would do, and again, what Liz is saying as well, is keep that resume to one page. I tell people this all the time. If you have less than 5 to 10 years of experience, your resume should not be longer than a page. So what I would do, and a quick little pointer for if you're trying to just shorten it just enough so it increases that page, is drop your font size by 0.5. So if your font is at 12, you can always change it to 11.5, and you'll notice that that one page will fit more. So those are just a couple pointers that I can give to you in regards to shortening up your resume.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Next up, we're going to bring on stage Claudia Vazzalo. Claudia, you are welcome to come on, and you can turn your video and audio on. While she's doing that, Claudia is a recent Master's of Human Resource Management student from Rutgers University. Love Rutgers. So congratulations. It sounds like you are just entered that program or just graduated. So congratulations and welcome to the stage, Claudia.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon, John and Liz. First, thank you so much for taking the time to set up this event for us today. So my name is Claudia Vazzalo. I'm actually a recent graduate of the Masters of Human Resource Management program at Rutgers University. And my question is, as someone who has a really high level of education in HR, but very limited experience, what are some ways that I can help myself stand out during an interview from other candidates who may have less education, but more experience for the role?
Yeah, absolutely. So Claudia, first and foremost, congratulations on the graduation of your master's program. I myself am getting my MBA online, so I understand how difficult those programs can be. In regards to so we're on the same page, you're asking if I have more education but less experience, how do I convert that into getting in front of the right people when I'm like explaining your resume? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what I tell people this all the time is that and Claudia, may I ask, did you have experience in school? Like, were you working in like a work study? Did you have a job on campus? Did you have any additional experience? Were you a leader of a club? Did you participate in group activities or anything like that on campus?
Yeah, so I was a manager for 2 student centers during my undergrad, and then during my graduate school, I was a TA for the director of the undergraduate program for HR.
So Claudia, it certainly seems like you do have experience. What I do want you to understand, Claudia, is that when a recruiter is reviewing your resume, it is extremely impressive that you were a full-time student while working additional jobs. I want to reiterate that being a TA is a lot of work. Being a manager of teams is a lot of work. So Claudia, you already have it. You're showing the leadership qualities. You are showing that you are a leader and you're a management of teams. Make sure, and Claudia, what I would recommend is kind of making sure that your bullet points or your factors on your work experience explain process efficiency. So if you were to say, hey, listen, I was a TA, the cumulative GPA in the class before I was the TA and managing students and working well with others was a 2.8. When I was working on this class, it evaluated and went to a 3.2. Like, be able to explain process efficiency. And I think you will go such a long way. And Claudia, what I want you to realize too, and I give this advice to candidates a lot of time, if you're receiving calls from a recruiter and they're screening you, they are interested in you and whatever is on your resume. I don't want you to cut yourself short off by any means, because that's what I used to do. I used to think like, hey, they're calling me and then they're telling me like, oh, we'll get back to you or we'll let you know. They saw your application. If they saw your application and saw your resume and they were calling you and then they told you, like, they are interested in you, Claudia. If I was to look at your resume right now and explain it, the way that I would recommend you having your experience lined up is your process efficiency and your management of others and leadership of others. And that's how you get in front of it. It just because it's not labeled an internship or a co-op or a full-time role does not mean that it's not experience. And I don't want you to cut yourself short on that, Claudia.
Fantastic question, Claudia.
Thank you so much.
And good luck with everything. Thank you. All right, next up, we are going to welcome on stage, John, if you need a quick water break, go for it. I know you're doing these left and right. It's amazing. So next up on stage, we're going to have Arielle Abramova. Hari is a software engineering and Scrum Master intern at T-Mobile and a computer engineering student at the University of Georgia. So welcome back, Hari, and thanks for joining. And you can go ahead and turn your video and audio on.
Hey, John, thank you so much for doing this. And Liz, once again, thank you so much for having me on here. And it's a lot of fun doing this. And I want to say, first of all, John, the nuggets of advice you're dropping during the session is absolutely phenomenal. When I heard the willing to relocate thing, that blew my mind. Like that, I've been spending about 5 or 6 months, like going through my resume, just figuring out what is it? Why can't I get these internships? Like what's going on? Why am I not getting offers? And now I think about it and I'm like, I never had that on there. So why am I applying outside? And so that absolutely blew my mind. And I think I literally set a reminder to go home and change that immediately once I get home from work today. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
But my question kind of pertains to curating your LinkedIn profile. So I'm more active on LinkedIn recently, and I wanted to know about, how should you post on LinkedIn as an intern? How much should you post? What should you post so you can have your profile actually stand out? And how does that actually play into the recruitment process?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so and again, this is my recommendation. This is not of the companies that I've worked for. When it comes to posting on LinkedIn, I think there's a sense of excitement. Obviously, you want to show people what you're working on, but I think from an HR perspective, and then speaking with my network and speaking with other campus recruiters, you want to be careful what you post out on social media is the first thing, because you may be working on a project and there might be a non-disclosure, and you do not want to just go ahead and be like, hey, this is what I've been working on. And then all of a sudden it's like, what just happened? And that'll be a conversation that you do not want to have with your line manager. Now,
Sure.
In regards to my strategy and what I post on LinkedIn, I'm trying to think about how many people I can impact and influence and support as much as I can. Now, Hari, what will be interesting, and I give this advice to students a lot, is there's nothing wrong, Hari, with creating your own article, creating your own post, telling people what you are looking to do to help. So Hari, you told me you're a software engineer. You have Scrum Master skills. I'm assuming that you are proficient in either Java, Python, or C++. Is that fair?
Yes.
Hari, have you ever thought about reaching out on LinkedIn, being like, hey, listen, for those who are looking to apply to a software engineer role, I'm looking to give up some of my time to help you with your Java, C++, SQL skills. I am telling you that will go viral. You don't ever see someone type on there saying, hey, I'm willing to give up my time to help someone out. I post on LinkedIn, Hari, and I'll say, hey, as a passion project of mine, I will literally call all the people that comment on this post saying who needs help with their resume, and I get thousands of likes. So Hari, it spreads like wildfire, but you want people to know that. Hari, and think about it like this. You could go on there, you could post and say, hey, listen, anyone that needs help in Java, C++, Python, looking to help anyone out this weekend. Someone comments, someone responds. You can go into your next resume, next interview and be like, hey, listen, it's something that's not on my resume is once a month, I will post on LinkedIn helping anyone out with Java or C++ or Python skills. And hiring managers are like, this is amazing. Like, why wouldn't we want him part of our team?
I love that. The one thing I'll say though is, John, you always follow through. When you offer to
Yeah,
do
you
that,
got to follow through.
So everyone who's
Yeah.
listening to this advice, just make sure if you're going to offer that, you don't want to be the person who posts it and doesn't follow through.
Yeah,
for sure.
And like, Hari, what I'll do after this is like, I'll reach out to Liz and I'll tell Liz like, hey, whoever joined today's call, I will literally set up a Teams event after this. And I will do another live Q&A with them on Teams to be like, hey, this is my support to show you that I valued your time. So Hari, I'm happy to connect anytime offline and kind of discuss like your social media strategy. I think that you just have to think of it like from a perspective of how can I help others? But if you are during an internship, just be careful of what you post. You always like, and this is my recommendation, this was speaking with other networks, is reach out to your supervisor to be like, hey, like if it's something that you're working on specifically, Hari, during your internship, make sure you get your line manager's approval before you post it.
Right. Thank you so much, John. That's phenomenal. That's like phenomenal advice and an idea too. So thank you so much. Appreciate it so much.
Yeah,
Thanks,
absolutely.
Hari. All right, we only have time for a couple more questions, so I'm going to ask one question on the person's behalf as per their request, and then we'll invite Sunal up onto the stage. So this question is: my name is Asil, MBA candidate with a concentration in operations, supply chain management at Rollins. Congratulations in Florida. So they have about 5 years of professional experience in different industries, but are interested in actually applying into a new industry. Specifically for this person, they're really excited about Unilever, but it could be, any company. So just in general for those watching, any tips you have for people who are interested in switching industries, who've never tried out that new industry before, and how they can stand out and not be pigeonholed into, no, they're just a finance person, marketing person, whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you some, and first off, congratulations. Second, so you have some context. My role is specifically within campus recruitment. I support all of the internships, the co-ops, and usually like our first year out of college. But to give you my personal experience and what I had to do, I had to transition. I was literally in retail, then I went to investment banking, then I went to CPG. So I kind of have that experience. What I recommend strongly, and I stand by this, is you need to be able to adjust your resume. You need to be able to tell your story confidently. I tell people this all the time. When I give resume reviews or mock interviews, it's not what's on that piece of paper. It's how you tell your journey, how you tell your story. If you're able to relate to the position and what they are looking for, that is important. What makes you stand out, though, is if you've done your research on the values of the company, if you've identified what works for them, if you've done your research on what experience the CEO has, what experience does the chief technology officer have, and then when you're able to explain to them why you want to work there, you have that as a reason. So for instance, I'll give you a pointer to, and shout out to Unilever on this one, is when I did my research on Unilever and going to that CPG industry, finding out that the company was a top 100 company for mothers to work for was an extremely important value to me, because I'm the oldest of 6. My mom took care of all of us. She's an important factor in my life, and that is something that I was able to explain. You need to be able to answer that question, why you want to work there, more than what's necessarily your experience, because we all go through different career paths. We all have different journeys. We all switch. But I think that you need to understand, you need to know the values of a company, find out what's meaningful to them. And I think that journey between business to business will translate a lot quicker than you expect.
Fantastic. And I see a bunch of you all are submitting like reminders that you ask questions, and I am so sorry. We're never able to get through everyone's questions. So I apologize. We only have time for one final one. And so if your name is not being called, I am so sorry, but it does sound like John is willing to do follow-up sessions. So we'll provide John with we'll send out a note to everyone who's attended with follow-up information of how you can get more time with John. Also, if you are hearing all of this and you're like, I want to apply to work for Unilever, top company for mothers. Hey, yeah, there's a link that we just put in the chat. Our events team put it in. So go and click that link, and it has all of the early career roles for Unilever, not just campus, but also early career. So please do check that link out. The final question, and I'm so sorry to everyone who's not being called. I promise it has nothing to do with you. We just have to go in different orders and so on. But it is going to be Sonal. So Sonal, come on stage. I know you asked a few questions, so please only keep it to your final question. Sonal, just to introduce you, you are a Master's of Statistics student from Montclair State University. So go ahead and ask just one question, please.
Hi, I'm so glad to finally be on here. I remember when I was attending multiple of these sessions, and I'm glad I'm finally able to ask a question. So I was wondering, so I'm starting my master's degree in the fall, and I'm coming in with an undergraduate GPA, and I'm also looking to get an internship, like preferably with no GPA requirement. But my undergraduate GPA was below 3.0, so I was wondering, how do you navigate that in the internship section on the resume? Because that's kind of why I tend to keep it off.
Yeah, no. So no, thank you for the transparency. And first off, congratulations on starting your master's program in the fall. It is a ton of work, but I can promise you it is worth it. And clearly they see something in you that obviously they accepted you. So congratulations, Sanel. That's extremely impressive. So when it comes to that and the GPA standpoint, that's up to you to decide if you would like to disclose that information. That information isn't mandatory. That information is not going to be right there where it's going to make or break. A lot of the a lot of companies that are having internships, you do not see a resume till they get to after they complete the digital interview process. So that's pointer number one. Pointer number two is, if you're like, hey, I need to put my GPA on there, Sanal, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is your major GPA above a 3.0?
No.
Okay, then that's completely fair as well. What I would say, Sanal, is I would make sure that you're able to obviously explain your resume top to bottom. That's going to be pointer number one. You're going to have to be able to explain to them why you want to work there. But three, it's up to you to decide what you decide you want to disclose. That if you want to put your GPA on there, and that's fine. If you don't feel like it's going to make or break your internship. But that information may be required later down the road, or it may not. But I think that at the end, ultimately, Sanal, it's up to you to decide if you would like to disclose that information.
And what if the major GPA is a 3.0? Because I think I might have to double check, but it might be like borderline.
Yeah, then you could absolutely put your major GPA on there.
For what it's worth, and I'll share this for everyone watching, because a lot of people have a GPA below 3.0, and this isn't spoken about enough. And I will say, I think when you show that you also had other things going on throughout college, not to say that people with above a 3.0 don't, but very often employers are extremely understanding of, oh, this person also worked part-time or took care of their, siblings, or was a caretaker for a grandparent, or whatever it might be. Maybe they also just were involved in a lot of extracurriculars. That often also helps employers really put a lot of context around it. So any way you can show that in your resume in addition to in the interview, I think John's totally right. Great. Well, I am so sorry to everyone who we couldn't get to your questions. I know you all asked amazing questions. Please take it out on me, not John. I really apologize, but John will potentially be doing a follow-up session, and we'll follow up with everyone about that over email. So in the meantime, John, thank you so much for doing this. If you could one more time just share your social media kind of links so that everyone, just what people should look for on LinkedIn or on Twitter or Instagram, whatever you're on, so that everyone can follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, what will happen next, guys, is Liz will send me an email of all the attendees today, and I will be able to reach out to you via email, and we could definitely do a follow-up. In regards to my LinkedIn, obviously, it's just John Pearson. If you are looking for the Instagram podcast account that I was talking about, it's university_podcast_relationship, and you'll be able to find it right there on Instagram. But I'm happy to be a resource to anyone on this call. And again, Liz, thank you so much for having me as a guest speaker. This meant the world to me, and I'm happy to help out in any way that I could.
Thank you so much, John, and everyone who watched. Thank you. Thank you for submitting questions. And I really hope everyone takes this advice, because it really is fantastic advice. And everyone has gotten rejected from job applications before. Everyone has gotten, not everyone, most people have gotten hired for jobs before. So don't give up, take this advice, and good luck. And hopefully you all check out WayUp if you're not already on it, create that profile, because then employers will log in and find you all and will source for you guys. John even is an example of someone who actually sources candidates from WayUp. So please do make sure you do that as well. But John, thank you so much again for joining.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, everyone.